Welcome to Central Missouri Alumni Stories. I'm your host, Cory Bittner. On this show, we talk with alumni from the University of Central Missouri, and we ask them to tell their stories. Today, our guest is Logan Freeman, and Logan is the founder of LiveFree Investments that specializes in investment properties and commercial real estate. So we're really excited to have the conversation today, talk about his road to what he's doing now, his athletic career at UCM, his stint in the NFL, and everything else that's involved. So thanks again for your time, Logan. I appreciate you being here.
I'm happy to be here.
All right, perfect. So first off, one of the things that we've kind of ran through with guests and talking about their stories, what led them to the university, what they're doing now.
Sure.
We just kind of start with where did you grow up?
Yeah,
where are you from?
I was born in Jefferson City, Missouri, which, if you're from Missouri, obviously you know it's the capital,
right.
But I have to tell people a lot when I'm talking to them that it's the actual capital of Missouri. So I grew up, going to Catholic grade school, and then I went to the Catholic high school there, Helias in Jefferson City. Grew up, started working when I was 14 years old, throwing hay on the back of a truck.
Really?
Yep, and doing dishes in a dish pit at a catering business that was really close to my house. And believe it or not, I found my way to University of Central Missouri through football.
Okay.
But it was because they had a great hotel and restaurant management program as well.
Okay.
So for my undergrad, I studied hotel and restaurant management because of my influence that I had at the catering business. I thought I wanted to get into the hospitality industry.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I would beg to guess that if you, obviously football is what took you to to UCM.
Yep.
But the degree that you were interested in, were there other schools that you were considering? Were there other schools that made scholarship offers where you said, hey, this is something I ought to at least think about?
We were talking to Mizzou to be a walk-on. We were talking to K-State to do the same thing. And then the only other school that I really, in Missouri State, in Springfield as well, that I really was considering from a football standpoint was Northwest Missouri State.
Sure,
of our
of course,
rivals, right? And those Bearcats. But when I visited that, my mom went to Northwest Missouri State as well. But when we visited, there was like a foot of snow on the ground. The wind was just horrible. There wasn't a whole lot going on in Maryville at the time. And I don't know if there might not still be.
I'm not sure either.
The visit that I had there just wasn't super exciting or fun, and they didn't really put a personalization on me as a recruit coming in. And so UCM did a fantastic job, the football team did, with welcoming their recruits, making them feel, they've set up this, I still remember to this day, they put your high school number, they get the jersey, and they set up a locker for you when you were coming through as a recruit. Northwest didn't have any of that stuff. So along with it being much more centrally located, I liked the location. They had a great hotel and restaurant management program, and the team, it was Willie Fritz, who's now a coach at a D1 school. I can't remember which school he's at, maybe Tulsa or something like that now, but they did a fantastic job making you feel welcome and that you were wanted from them from a football standpoint. So that was a no-brainer for me, and I also had the opportunity I felt like to come in and make an impact earlier on at UCM than I was going to at maybe Mizzou or K-State.
Okay, yeah, makes sense.
Or even Northwest.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, good. So I guess before you went to school, then you already knew what you wanted to study.
Yeah.
And when you went in as a freshman, did you declare a major? Did you know that, hey, this is what I want to do?
I did.
Okay.
I was right whenever I signed up, first day, I remember hotel and restaurant management was my bachelor's degree. Now, if I could go back, I'd probably change that.
Really?
Just because of my experiences through actually working in that industry, I realized that it wasn't necessarily what I thought it was going to be, or I just realized that the work was way too hard.
Sure. Yeah, no, I understand that.
I didn't want to work that hard anymore. Not to say that.
I know what you mean.
Physically, like the time that you put in at a hospitality industry, I just
long late nights, weekends, all of that
late
stuff.
Nights,
yeah, sure.
When everybody else wants to have fun, and typically you do too. And not only that, there's a cycle of that industry where people have a hard time getting out. If they get, I know a lot of my friends who were in that industry in Warrensburg even.
Sure.
And there was a different life they had to live, and they got kind of in this cycle of. and they're still doing it maybe down.
How do you break out of it?
Yeah, it's hard to break out of. It's just not what I wanted. So I ended up staying and finishing my master's degree there, and just general master's in business administration at UCM as well.
Okay, so I don't know if I knew that. Actually, I think I knew that. But either way, so you did what was the timeline from when you finished your undergrad degree? Did you go straight into your master's degree?
Yeah. Okay. So with football, they usually redshirt you, and so there's a freshman when you come in as a true freshman, you usually get redshirted, meaning you can practice but you can't play in the games. Well, I was able to actually play in some games, but I got a medical redshirt because I broke my ankle and partially tore my MCL. So I got that year back, which allowed me to graduate in 4 years with my undergrad, and then start on my master's degree that 5th year. And so I finished my master's degree in about a year and a half. So that full year while I was there in 2012 was when I graduated with my bachelor's. 2013 was my graduate year, my first year. That's when I got picked up as a free agent with the Raiders. After I was cut by the Raiders, we can dive into that. I came back for, I did a summer semester, and then I did one more full semester, and I was done.
Okay. So let's talk about that. I mean, for you when you were in college, whether it was undergrad or when you got picked up by the Raiders, was the big picture, long-term dream and vision, was it the NFL? Was it football? Did you think that was what it was going to be?
No, not at all.
Okay.
So this is kind of a funny story, but I didn't even play football my freshman year in high school.
Okay.
I was a basketball player.
You were, okay.
I love basketball. To this day, I still play basketball. But I realized that, my body type probably wasn't super cut out to be a basketball player,
Understood.
Pounds, and I was just, I still have fun playing.
Yeah, of course.
There's point guards that are as tall as me now, right?
Sure.
So, I started playing my sophomore year in college or in high school and decided, I think I was pretty good at it. So honestly, I had no idea that it was going to be, something that I was going to be able to do after college. So that was never the dream or never the vision that I had.
Okay.
I was using football to help pay for my schooling.
Sure.
Right? And I didn't have any money to come to pay for college, so that was how I did it. And so, whenever that happened, I guess, I started seeing some scouts kind of show up to practice, and I walked up to my coach and I said, "Hey, Coach McClung, who are they here to see?" And they said, "You."
Really?
Actually, you have a meeting with one of them right now. I was like, okay.
And what position did you play?
I was an offensive lineman.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was kind of a surprise to me, to be honest with you. Yeah, so I mean, it was fun to get what I'll go through that process with going after watching the NFL draft, and right after it closed, that 7th round, I think it was.
Okay.
And my phone rang exactly then, and it was my agent that said, "Hey, the Oakland Raiders are going to have you come out to camp as an undrafted free agent." So I had to say, with being a Chiefs fan, I asked why.
No one else?
I was like, really, man? Like anybody else? Like you don't really dictate when you're
done. It's not your decision. Yeah.
You just kind of go where you're told. So I was flown out there, and
I'm sorry, that draft was what year? 12, 13?
13.
Okay.
So I was probably about 6 years ago. Yeah, in April. Would have been 6 years ago. So I flew out there, and I was out there for rookie mini camp, made it through rookie mini camp. They drafted a center from Texas Tech, and that's what I was going to be playing. And I beat him out, so he left camp. So I stayed. I moved over to guard because we had another center that was just, you could tell was going to be the guy if they were going to keep one. So I saw a void in a position on the line that I'd really never played before. But I stepped in, and I got myself about 2 or 3 extra weeks out there. So by moving to guard, and then ultimately I got beat out by a guy that was better than me.
Sure.
And so it was a great experience for me, not only physically, but I think emotionally and mentally. It was the biggest.
How so?
Well, I would say a lot of people ask me, were you physically, capable? And I absolutely was. From an athletic standpoint, I was top of my game.
Were you?
I was 330 pounds.
Wow. So you're a lot bigger than you are. Yeah,
Yep.
you were a lot bigger. Yeah, okay.
I ran a 5 flat 40.
Yeah.
I jumped like 29 inches on the vert. I did the bench press 32 times. And so all my numbers were there.
You were there.
But the speed of the game was at a point where I had never seen before. and it was just the Division I speed. Because you take all the best Division II athletes, put them on a team, and they probably compete with a Division I team. But you could get away in Division II football by being bigger, faster, and stronger.
Yep.
When you get to that level, everybody's bigger, faster, stronger.
Yes.
And so then it's like, okay, how fast can I actually play? And the schemes that I was seeing at center were different than I had ever seen before from a Division II standpoint. So mentally, I was not ready, and I was a little arrogant as well. So I should have been much more humble while I was out there but I also think, like I was telling you before we got on the interview, that I think God had a different plan for me, and this was all a step for me to kind of move into what I'm doing now.
Okay, that's good. So then so after that happened, you came back to the Kansas City area?
Well, I went back to Warrensburg.
Back to Warrensburg, okay. And how much longer was what else did you still have to do as far as the MBA?
Yeah, I had one semester left.
That was it, okay.
About 6 months. So I don't know if they're still there, but there's the library sits right here, and if you're facing towards campus, I don't remember what the road is. That 13 highway that just runs right through, or I can't remember the main road right there.
It is.
But yeah, so there used to be some yellow apartments that sat kind of way back off to the left, near the library.
Yes.
On one of those side roads.
On the same side of 13 is the library?
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're talking about.
Okay, so what they don't tell you is, as an undrafted free agent, you don't make much, if anything.
Yeah, right.
Football was not playing my school anymore. And so when I got cut, I went back home to Jeff City for a half semester. I got into some classes. Actually, Eric Huey was in that class.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So,
and Eric was a guest recently on the show.
That's awesome
for our listeners. Yeah.
So I went back home. I got some classes. I signed up from the last day on classes. I was able to sign up. I got into a few that I needed to be able to finish school on time. And I started working construction to try to build up some money so I could pay for this schooling. And the crazy part about this was, when I was, like I said, I was 335 pounds when I was in less than. This is a story I jumped over, but when I got cut from the Raiders, I kind of mentally made a decision that this football is not going to be what I want to do, right?
And you kind of closed the book on that, yeah.
Right. I had identified as an athlete my whole life. Growing up, I was a basketball player, football player. It was time for me. It felt like for me to step into my next role, the next chapter in my life. And so when I did that, I took a visit with another UCM alumni, David Bax.
Mm-hmm.
We took a vacation to Las Vegas with his family, so it wasn't like a crazy Vegas thing.
Sure.
We were out, going to the lake out there, seeing the Hoover Dam. Is it the Hoover Dam?
It is.
Yeah, we went out there and saw all that stuff. But the 49ers called me one night when I was there. And I was up at a pool, and I answered the phone, and they said, "Hey, is this Logan Freeman?" I said, "Yep." They said, "Well, our center just went down, and it was the last cut. So if you ever watch, what's the HBO show?
Hard Knocks.
Football, Hard Knocks. It was the last cut. Like they had made the last cuts, and if you make it past the last cut, you're really gonna you feel pretty good about making it on the team. Well, that center had made the last cut, but then he went down hurt, and so they were gonna fly me. They said, "Where are you at? We love your film. Where are you at? Are you in shape?" I said, "I'm in great shape. I had been running. It was four weeks that I had off. I was." And I had already lost 40 pounds.
In 4 weeks?
Yeah.
Wow.
So if you ask anybody that was in my master's program, I had Jim Savota, our head football coach, wrote a letter to our teachers to allow me to eat food while I was in class because they were all night classes. So to keep my weight where I needed to be, I was eating close to 20,000 calories a day.
You're kidding.
No. So, I would eat these shakes that were just protein. These just blenderfuls of shakes. I would have pizza that was delivered. I'm not kidding you.
Just so constantly.
All the time.
You were just constantly consuming.
So when I stopped doing that, yeah, it wasn't healthy.
Yeah.
But when I stopped doing that, I wish I could just drop 40 pounds like that now, right?
I hear ya.
But when I stopped doing that, I started running and just kind of just exercising, and the weight started shedding off. So when they called, I said, "So are you in shape?" I was like, "I'm in great shape." They said, "Well, what do you weigh?" And I said, "Well, I weigh about 275, 280 pounds." And they said, "Oh, okay. So are you and I just told them straight up. I said, "Look, I think I appreciate the offer," because they were going to fly me from Vegas to San Francisco to get out there. And I was like, "I appreciate the offer. I just, this isn't something that I want to pursue anymore. And that was the turning point in my life. Okay, so that was the first big turning point in my life where I had to kind of say, all right, I'm thinking about moving into something, a new chapter in my life. So that's when I went back, finished up my schooling. So when I was finishing school, I think this will be a good story too, I started to kind of dive back into my faith, but also personal and professional development. And so I had no business experience, Cory. So I had to find something to get on my resume because it was all construction. I worked for Warrensburg R6 all through college. So I was on the construction crew during the summertime for all of the grade schools.
Yeah.
All the schools. So and mostly what I did was pour concrete. So that doesn't look real good on a resume when you're trying to get a business job. So I got on LinkedIn like I always do. I found a job in Sweet Springs, Missouri. So I don't know
how far on 70. I know it's east. I don't know how far
away from Warrensburg.
Okay.
And there was a company there, still is there, called MCH Strategic Data. And I cold called the hiring agent and I said, look, I need a job. I start school in January. Maybe it was May. No, it was the May. I start school in May or whenever that second semester is.
Yep.
And I need to get a job and what do you got for me? And they said, well, we've got this, account executive or position or account manager position. And I said, what do you do?
Cold calling?
Cold calling.
Yeah, that sounds like
I made 265 cold calls a day. I outsold every single rep that was there. And I was only there for 6 months. They knew I was only really going to be there for 6 months. But they had this new product, and I really wanted to sell this new product because the commission was higher on it.
Sure.
So I would just go in there, and the company's great. What they do is they scrape K through 12 data using a web scraper or a bug that goes on and pulls data from all these things, and then we compiled those lists. And then we had a program that allowed different vendors to pull the lists that they would need to then go market to those lists.
Got it.
So I was calling on those vendors trying to get them to buy the data.
Got it.
And I made over 260 cold calls a day to do that.
So you're grinding it out. And that's when you were taking class at night.
At night. So I would wake up, this is my schedule, so I would wake up at 3:30 in the morning. Do you remember where that Anytime Fitness was downtown?
Yes.
I would drive over to that Anytime Fitness, I'd work out. And then I would get back at my that nasty little apartment that when my mom left, she was in tears because there was roaches everywhere.
Yeah.
Well, they don't have a front door. They never did. So we would just have random dogs laying in the Well, that's what I could afford at the time.
Sure.
And so I would go back there. I'd shower, and then I'd go to work at Sweet Springs all day long. And I'd come home, and then I would go to school from what is night class, like 5 to 9 or something. I would do that for 5 days out of the week, and then on Saturdays I would spend 12 hours at the library just studying, getting fixed, and then Sunday I'd go to church and watch football.
How long was that your schedule?
That was 6 months. 6 months out of the year that I did that. In that time, this is probably a really good story. I lost 100 pounds. I lost my father to drugs and alcohol.
I'm sorry to hear that.
So he passed away during that time. I had to re-identify myself as a new person because I was no longer an athlete, and that rigorous schedule really implemented discipline and focus and so I had a lot of changes that happened during those.
It sounds like that was a pretty transformative 6 months.
It really was. It was, and I think it happened like that for a reason. But I was able to secure a new job while I was at the MCH Strategic Data as a franchise consultant with Jimmy John's. So I knew that in December when I graduated, in January I was going to have a new job to start with Jimmy John's. That was going to be in the Kansas City area. So I was super excited about it.
Yeah, that's great, and I obviously I admire what it is that you sort of just the experience that you have and kind of looking back on what it is that you went through. It's probably one of those things where I have some of those periods in my life where I can look back and it's kind of like, that was such a critical period for me, and I'm so glad that I went through it, but I'm also so glad I don't ever have to do that again. Yeah. And you probably might feel the same way.
I would agree with you. It was, but those are the things that make you who you are, right?
That's right. Now, if you don't mind me asking, can you tell me about really your experience when you were in Warrensburg, more from kind of an academic standpoint? How do you, whether it pertains to something that you studied or, what sort of, did you always have the work ethic that you had, do you feel like some of that discipline was required throughout your educational experience? I mean, what sort of gave you the foundation to be able to do that?
Yeah, well, I would say that the work ethic started whenever I was in Jefferson City working for
14 years old,
some money. But my mom always implemented into our brains, like just planted in there, that you are a student first and an athlete second.
That's good.
And so did our athletic team. I mean, we had study hall. We had all these different things. If you didn't keep a certain GPA, you couldn't play. You lost your scholarship. So if I lost my scholarship, I would be out of school. There was no, hey, go get a loan or something like that. It was, or hey, Logan, here's a check to cover this semester. Yeah. It was
you had to figure something else out.
And so it was kind of like that burn the boats mentality, right? So I was in the only other football player that's done this is Brett Ginn, and he's a wealth advisor as well down in Texas. So Brett Ginn's a good friend of mine, and me and Brett were both ESPN all academic scholars through football and through our academics. So I was on the dean's list every semester that I was in school. So I think that the football team, they do a really good job of implementing routines for people. Like, hey, you need to get to morning weights, you need to go to class, and they would check to see if you were in class. So we had a lot of eyes on us at all the times. And then thankfully I probably needed that structure. That structure. But I'm attracted to structure like that. And so after I had the routine down, man, it was fine for me. I went and rocked it out. It was no problem at all. But I think having the structure that the football team put in place for me was exactly what I needed to succeed. So that was instrumental in probably developing the discipline and focus that I try to now still continue to have.
Okay. No, that's great. And I'm happy to hear that that's the case. And I think, well, one, just, young people at that age, you don't know what you don't know, and sometimes just putting those structures in place, and then you find out or at least in my experience, and it sounds like it was the same for you, the further you got along in school, whether it was trying to finish your MBA and then ultimately starting your career, that it's very much that a good process is what creates a good outcome, right? Exactly. Having those habits, having those disciplines, and just doing it, and doing it no matter what, and it's like that's how you end up being where you want to get.
That's exactly right. And so, from an academic standpoint, I loved my classes.
Did you?
Once I got through the gen ed stuff.
Sure.
That was somewhat rough for me. But, coming from a private Catholic school, it was the classes were, I think, less difficult for me because I had been through a lot of that type of schooling before, and I didn't go to some big public school in St. Louis or Kansas City or anything like that, and so I had a lot of advantages, I think, that helped me for that freshman year to transition to schooling, but I never had any issues. If I did, I would hire what do they call them, a tutor. I would hire a tutor because math I was not all that great at, and some of that stuff when we got into our master's program with economics was really, really difficult for me. And so Brett Ginn, actually, and I'm humble enough to say this, Brett Ginn tutored me through my master's program with all of the finance stuff.
That's great.
What
a good friend to have.
And everything like that, right? Which I use on a regular basis in commercial real estate now, but there's a calculator for that.
I get it. I totally understand.
But we were down there, and accounting. Accounting was very difficult too. There was for me it was. There were some things there on being detail oriented that didn't play to my strengths. But I'll tell you this: my undergrad, even though it wasn't probably the right choice for me, what it did teach me was how to set goals, how to study, how to apply yourself, and then ask for help. It was those four things that going through my bachelor's program and how to work together with other people. So, and then obviously, another alum, Sheldon Smith, who's still a great friend of mine. We worked together at SMG. We were kind of the presenters because we had, got in front of so many groups of people all the time.
Comfortable
I was
doing
the captain of the football team. We talked in front of people. That was the other thing that I so much got out of schooling was getting out of my comfort zone and talking in front of people in public speaking. So that's my undergrad. My master's program, I absolutely loved.
Did you? That's
very
great.
Difficult. It was probably a newer program. They didn't have the entrepreneurship, I guess, focus yet. So I just did a general, but I still remember, I can't remember the guy's name. He was an older gentleman teacher on the marketing side. He's the one that got me into reading books. I mean, it was books like The Power of Habit and what is that? Charles Duhigg's other book, I can't remember, but we read The Power of Habit. We read like Ideas That Stick, or all The Purple Cow by Seth Godin, all these different things. And one of them had us read a Stephen Covey book, and I was like, wow, why don't we teach this more? And there was so much more leeway, it felt like, in our master's program, that we were actually working on how to work and live and try to be a better person almost than it was, here, we're going to focus on hotel and restaurant management. It's like, hey, actually, when you get out in the business world, you need to know how to do this. You need to know how to talk to people. You need to know how to network. You need to know how to sales.
Sure.
We didn't have sales. I mean, business is sales, in my opinion. That's what at least it's the lifeblood of business. And so when I was sitting in all those classes, I still had this burning question in my mind. I'm like, okay, these are great theories, right? Like, these are all theories, but how do we go apply those things? So everything that I've been trying to learn outside of college now has been things that are complete at the theoretical level, but are effective at the applied level. And so many of those started with, how to win friends and influence people, Think and Grow Rich, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Now I have my focuses that I work on now with, different things that I'm doing, negotiation or pitching or things like that. But my love for books and reading really got started in my master's program, and that one teacher, and I cannot remember his name, but he taught the master's marketing, and Eric would know because he was in my class.
Okay.
So I'll have to ask Eric who it was, but he started me on my love of books, and now I have a library that would fill that wall right there full of books in my house because of the MBA program at UCM.
If you had to pick one favorite book, if you had to suggest one book for someone to read, what would you suggest?
I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Dale Carnegie.
Classic. Was he a UCM guy?
He was.
Yeah. See, there you go. There's another UCM plug, right?
That's right.
I would say if you can learn how to control your own emotions, and then also how to respond to people and not react, those two things will be more important than anything else that you learn how to do in life. I still meet guys and gals in their 50s, 60s that I negotiate with on real estate transactions. I'm talking $1 million deals, multi-million-dollar deals that don't know how to control their emotions. And I'll sit there and I'll use silence. Everybody's so weird about silence, but I'll just sit there and look at somebody after you say something, and you just kind of let it sit there. And I've gotten more negotiation.
They can't handle it? Yeah, I know.
So my success tip today is, if you can just say something, set it there. Don't second guess yourself, and just sit there and look at that other person right in the eye, and just kind of let that sit. It's so powerful. So, but just things like that. So I learned that stuff from How to Win Friends and Influence People, right? He has all those amazing stories about, you can tell somebody you hate them tomorrow, right? How Abe Lincoln used to write the letters to himself.
Yes.
He used to write them, and he used to put them in a desk drawer. If he still wanted to send them the next day, he would let his wife send them. And you know what his wife did? She never sent any of them, by the way.
Right, I know.
She threw them away.
I know. I remember that from the book.
Pretty cool. But that'd be my number one book.
It's like saving the email draft. You type up a nasty email, you're like, wait a minute.
Yep.
Maybe I should have pressed send.
Before I hit send, why don't I boomerang this back to myself tomorrow at the same time and reread it?
Right.
And that's actually implemented in Gmail now. They have a snooze.
I didn't know that.
You can snooze it back to yourself, that it'll pop back in your inbox. And if I have any type of hesitation
or doubts,
I snooze it back to myself. That's a 21st century Abe Lincoln tip right there.
That's good. Yeah. But the wife isn't there to interfere to make sure it doesn't get sent.
That's right.
So let's, one other question I have before we move on is, going back on that whole experience, undergrad, grad school, your master's degree, you mentioned when you went out and you went through minicamp with the Raiders, one thing you would have done differently is maybe been a little bit more humble, just humility. That's big. I understand that. As far as your educational experience, or just with the exception of that experience with the Raiders, just that period in your life, when you look back on that, if you could do something different, or if you could give advice to younger Logan, what would you do? What would you say?
I would listen to my elders and my teachers and my coaches with more authenticity. And what I mean by that is you can listen to somebody, but it can go in this ear and out the other. I thought that I was 10 feet tall and bulletproof and that I knew everything. And that was only 6 or 7 years, well, it's probably 10 years ago now. But if I could go back and tell myself then, it would be take to heart what those people are saying to you. And I didn't really start focusing on my mentality, my psychology, and my what I'll call my emotional intelligence until after college. If I could go back and just say, hey, you should just be in, I think people use the word mature, but that gets kind of a negative connotation around it. If there was just more emotional intelligence built into schooling in general, I think it would be very, very helpful. And that just is like how to relate to people, how to listen to people authentically and actually hear what they're saying and not let it just go in one ear and out the other. So I would probably just spend more time being open to other people's ideas, specifically my mentors, teachers, and coaches probably in college.
Yeah, that's good advice for, one, not only for you to give to your younger self, but probably for a lot of people.
Sure.
Probably for a lot of people that are watching or listening. And whether somebody is getting ready to go off to school, whether they're in college, or whether they're 20 years into their professional career. Right? I mean, we can all stand to benefit from taking a step back, focusing on being a little bit more intentional, being a little bit more authentic, having more of a genuine curiosity, and, just being open to learning and understanding. There's a reason that the old adage goes, it's the older that you get, the less you understand, right? Or the older that you get, you realize that you thought you had everything figured out, but you actually have very little figured out.
Yep, exactly.
And you become so much more open up to learning, right? And
other people's ideas and things like that, right? And, the best way to describe that is, we don't see the world as it really is. We see it as we see it. Right? We see it through our lens. And Stephen Covey, my wife makes fun of me, but it's running in my truck all the time, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he talks about paradigms. Well, we don't see the world how it really is. We see it through our lens and our filter. And so if you can make sure that you can maybe open your mind to somebody else's filter, especially if they've been doing something a lot longer than you, are older than you. And now, wisdom and age are not always directly correlated, in my opinion, but a lot of times it is. If somebody's been in an industry for any period of time, they've seen the ups and downs. That alone is just it's just instrumental in understanding and the experience that they get through doing those things. If you can stand on their shoulders and not make the same mistakes, or at least hear them out and hear their perspective and actually implement what they're saying, you can save yourself a lot of trouble. And I'll give a great example if you'll let me.
Yeah, please.
So we could talk about the business, but what I do is there might be a real estate asset that somebody wants to either develop or purchase, okay? I sit alongside them on purchasing that asset, but to do that, you need a loan usually, and you need equity or your down payment to bring to the table. Well, these are not like single family homes. These are $10, $15 million developments. So, bringing 30% of that is quite a bit of money. And so we have a project that's not in Missouri that we had a local investor here in Kansas City that was really interested in looking at it. And I watched him from day one be extremely methodical on his on the way that he went about this due diligence, right? He called other people in the market. We got on his private plane and flew up there and looked at the asset. After that, he called the number one developer of self-storage in that market. He paid somebody to write him a feasibility study. I watched him do that, and I said, man, he took 3 weeks to do due diligence and was very thorough at every single thing. But he was going to put a very sizable amount of money into this, and he ended up passing on the project. Well, so when I go back to the guy who wants to do the project, I had to think through personally, okay, if this individual who's been doing this for over 30 years, put that much time, effort, and energy into it. Now, he has different risk profile than maybe I do.
Sure.
But my hard charging self says, oh no, I still think that this is a great deal.
Of course.
I'm going to go find somebody to do this deal. But if this individual who's got so much experience that trumps me 100% says, I really like you guys and I want to do a project together, this is just not it. And he also said, I don't think it's for you either. I need to listen to that, right? Mm-hmm. And that needs to be, he spent over $10,000 doing the due diligence on that, and he had no skin in the game whatsoever. So other than, just being nice to look at our project. So it's things like that my wife was like, well, if he passed, why are you still working on it? And I was just like,
good question.
Really? Good question.
Right, yeah,
I think
sure.
that we get so, guys
Caught
like
up.
us and a lot of other people who are, very hard charging and want to be successful and work really hard on things, we get so focused on the outcome and only can see that sometimes that we don't listen, again, that listen word to other people who are telling us maybe that we should not be so focused on that, and hey, there's better things that we should go do. So my business this year has been a lot. I've really tried to implement listening and testing the market. Diana Kander wrote a book, and Diana's a local here in Kansas City. She wrote a book called The All-In Startup, and you try to test your ideas before you spend too much time, effort, energy, and money on building out this great prototype that nobody wants.
Right. So good point. Yeah, exactly.
With my business, I'm trying to do that same exact thing, right? And so those are ways when I have these trusted people that I take things to, and they don't just look at it and say, yeah, that's not good. No, he spent 3 weeks on it, took us on his own plane there.
Spent a lot of money.
Chartered that flight, all of that stuff. And so I think another thing that I've learned in this professional world is to really find those mentors and really open your ears to them. Not just somewhat he told me not to do the deal, but I'm still going to do it.
Right.
Really sit down and say, okay, work on your business and work on the feedback that you're getting instead of being so focused in it.
Yes.
That's very difficult for me to do. My wife, Strength Finders is if right behind How to Win Friends and Influence People would be Strength Finders, and it would be Emotional Intelligence 2.0, those 2 books.
Yep.
Because the key to, obviously success, in my opinion, is understanding yourself. And you have to have self-awareness first. So Strength Finders is very important in that. My wife has her number 1 is strategy and strategic. And that's not even in my top 500, right? Mine is, hey, there's the task, go. Just blunt force, just push through it and get to it done, right? Yeah. Discipline, focus, achiever, competitive, and individualization is mine. So right through.
Strategy's not any of those.
There is no strategy.
To your point, yeah.
So
sure.
Again, I think why my feedback is to somebody that's going through college is, look, you don't know everything. I still don't know everything.
No.
I don't know anything.
Right.
Listen to people that you trust, and your parents they do have your best interests in heart. And try to actually hear what they're saying. I think it's such an important thing that I wish I would have done better.
No, that's good. I'm glad that you shared all of that, and because there's hardly anything else that you could say that's probably more important than that. And I think of that in the way that I see that, and the analogy that I put on it is really just paying attention to those blind spots, right? Mm-hmm. You don't see what you don't see.
Yep.
But learning what to look for, and learning to pay attention, looking to say, you know what? If I can surround myself with people that can help me identify and recognize things that I couldn't identify and recognize for myself, or you don't know what to look for if you don't know what to look for.
You don't. I would venture to say the first time you sat down to watch your first interview, you said, "That's what I sound like on film."
Right.
That's what I actually look like.
Yeah, I know.
Right. And it's not that that's bad or good. But when you're talking,
it's the first time. Yeah.
You can't. And they say the same thing. Another good example is, when people are teaching, when a golf pro is teaching somebody to how to swing their golf club or they record them, and they're like,
"That's what I look like swinging a golf club." Yeah, exactly. Sure.
The same thing in the business world,
yep.
Right? You're out there, you're hustling, you're working hard, and then somebody comes along and says, "Hey, you might want to watch out for that," or "Hey, what you're doing is a little bit odd, or there's something off here," and you're like, "Oh no, that's not what I'm doing," but it is. And when you have people that can kind of put you back on track. It's super helpful.
I went through at a previous firm that I worked for, went through a wealth advisory program where they took a certain number of people that worked there and sent them through this. It was very much your emotional intelligence, communication skills, etc. And part of it was, just like you said, you're given basically a scenario where someone is in a certain position and you have a product or a service or whatever to explain why it'd be beneficial for them, and they record you and then you get all the feedback. And the coach talked with me about my communication skills or this and that, and he said, Cory, explained everything well. I think you understand what you're talking about. He's like, but what are you doing with your hands? Why are you waving your hands all over the place the whole time? And this was 3 or 4 years into my career. I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. I don't know why my hands were out here.
Yeah, and I didn't feel it.
I had no idea. He's like, just keep them in here, right? Shoulder to shoulder.
Okay,
keep them in front of you. Yes.
But you don't need to be all over the place.
Exactly.
Right.
I had no idea.
Exactly.
So anyway, okay, good. So let's talk then about, for the sake of time, I want to skip forward to, before we turned on the camera, I asked you when you started LiveFree, and your answer was?
Okay, so just like getting cut from the NFL was what I'll call a turning point in my life. When my father passed away, that was a turning point in my life. Well, my next biggest one was probably when I was fired from SMG here in Kansas City. So, I think that it wasn't just me that let go. It was a group of individuals on one department. But at the same time, there's no excuse. I wasn't performing where I needed to. So I won't highlight that at all. I mean, I won't downplay that at all. My wife always says, man, you are just so brutally honest. And I'm like, I didn't hit the numbers that I needed to hit. They didn't feel like I was making the effort that I needed to, and I got fired for it. I don't know how else to say it.
Sure.
So the day that I got fired, I knew I was getting fired. It was fine. I brought my own box in and got my stuff.
Okay. Yeah. Really. Yeah.
Yeah. When you get at 9 p.m. the night before, you get a 6 a.m. meeting at the office.
Work. Yeah. Okay.
You kind of know
connect
what's
the dots.
going on. So needless to say, I parked right out in front and was gone next 30 minutes. So, but that day, honestly, I had the most freeing feeling that I have ever felt in my life. It was, holy cow. What, you're not going to be held back anymore. You're not going to feel like you're working for somebody else. And I kind of called my wife, and I knew I wanted to get into the real estate game. And she said, well, by the end of the day, I'll email you your LLC docs so you can get started. And so I started a consulting company. That was in December, what are we in? 2019, almost 2020, December of 2017. So I was 27 years old. My wife we just got married like a month before. She had just started a new job, and then I got fired. And so she supported me enough to say, I'm going to support you in building and starting your own business. And so I was really interested in Toastmasters and all of these different. I read about every sales book there is. So I got Franklin Covey certified. And I was teaching the sales program at SMG. Well, I took that, knowledge with me, and I said, well, I think I can help small businesses, start or just get better at sales. And so I saw some kind of what I thought were gaps in what the sales training that was available for people. And I took the Inc. 5,000 fastest growing companies. I called every single one of them, and I landed 3 full-time sales consulting clients.
Really?
And so again, just my life has been just take action. And so when they would ask me what I did, I didn't have a website at this time. I just said, well, what do you need? And that wasn't necessarily the best question.
Sure, no.
But this was December 17th, I think. 2017. By January 15th, I had my first contract, and by January 30th, I had been paid already from.
Good for you.
So I was cash flow positive. Not only was I doing the sales consulting, and get this, I was flying to other people's conventions, putting their shirts on, and pitching their products at booths. That was one of the things I was doing. I was also building Infusionsoft and HubSpot CRMs I was not. I was brokering. I was just connecting people with people that could help, right? That's all I was doing. And I was training salespeople. That's what I was doing. I hated it. I thought I was going to love it. I thought that being, my own boss was going to be awesome. I realized that no, I was not working for somebody else, but I was working for my clients. And since I didn't have a repeatable process, I was at the whim of just doing everything that they asked for. Try to think about this. You give a proposal to somebody and you document different phases. This is the first time I've ever done something like this on what and how to price something like I was doing. How do you tell somebody what your time is worth? Sure. I didn't have a product. I didn't have anything. I was reading all these consulting books. I still didn't know what I was doing. I was really just spinning my wheels. I was making great money doing it, but I was not fulfilled by it at all. At the same time, I took a head of acquisitions job doing acquisitions for about a $50 million fund here in Kansas City. So my buddy had started a boutique brokerage called Storybook Realty and Plaid Management, and we were buying properties, renovating them, leasing them up, and then managing for them. And we did that over about 225 doors. So in 9 months of that same year of 2018, in 9 months we did 125 transactions.
Wow.
So I was busy.
You were busy.
So I was doing that. I was also full-time doing the consulting thing. So in June of that year, my wife goes, we're on Ward Parkway walking down the street. She goes, pretty impressive about what you've done. And I'm really excited for you, but you need to focus. Again, she's strategic.
Right.
I'm not.
What are you going to do?
I'm so focused in it that I'm not. And she said, you pick one. Pick real estate or pick consulting. And that day I decided, this was my next decision point, that I was going to finish up my proposals with those clients. I was done, and I was going full steam ahead in real estate. And that's when I transformed LiveFree Consulting into LiveFree Investments.
And this was June of 18?
June of 18. So I've been full-time doing, we talked a little bit about this, but private placements for accredited investors, and then helping out-of-state clients purchase high-yielding investment property here in Kansas City. And so that's what I focus on 100% now, and I'm absolutely loving it, and I'm starting to make kind of a new pivot into a new world of the commercial real estate called crowdfunding. And so anyways, that was kind of the last pivot point that I think I've made the last 5 or 6 years. So there's been 3 or 4 of them that have been really instrumental for me.
Yeah, that's great. And now what you're doing is you made that decision for yourself. Yeah. Right?
My wife.
Unfortunately, your wife was there to provide you some guidance to get a strategy in place. But it's yours, right?
Yeah, it is.
And it's yours, and you're giving it all you've got. So it's impressive to see what you're doing and how hard you're working. So I'm happy. It sounds like things are going as well as they are for you.
Yeah, I think that there's a big allure for people to kind of, just like you did 3 years ago, pack up shop and start something. I would say, and I've told Eric this, I've told another guy, has Brent Vogel been on this?
He's not.
Okay, Brent Vogel was
He and I, we message each other on LinkedIn, but yeah.
He's awesome. He was a national champion multiple times at the decathlon for UCM.
Wow.
And I went to high school with Brent. And Brent's my weekly accountability partner. So for the last 6 years, Brent and I have had a call. In those 6 years, I've probably seen him twice. But I consider him one of my best, because he's never lived in, he actually did live in Kansas City for a little bit, but I consider him one of my best friends because of what we've done. But, where was I going with that?
You were talking about how he was your accountability partner.
Right. So he was my accountability partner throughout that process, and he's been able to give me feedback on things that I need to do. But I watched him go from training for the Olympics to being a top producing salesperson at Stryker, right? We've been able to help each other make these pivots that have been really, really instrumental. But where I was going, now I know where I was headed, is I would say that just quitting your job and just starting something from scratch when you have no plan, no blueprint, no idea on how you're going to make money or anything is going to be a big challenge for somebody.
Of course.
I would say, and I've been I've been speaking with multiple people about this lately. Like, find what that biggest roadblock is going to be for you in your mind, and most of the time it's, how am I going to pay the bills? Okay, right? find something that allows you to pay the bills so you can get that out of your mind. If you have any type of client-facing role and somebody can see dollar signs in your eyes, you're done.
Right.
So not only with your negotiation, but they can actually see it. So what I would say, if that's your challenge, figure out how you can make enough money where you feel good about that and you feel comfortable that you're not going to need to make the next sale to be okay, and then start working on.
Right, you get over that hump.
And it might not be finances, maybe it's something else, but until you have thought through what that challenge or roadblock is going to be, all you're going to see when you do make the move is that.
Right.
So solve for that first. This is another thing that Diana Kander in All In Startup talks about. Solve for that issue first so you can clearly see the holistic picture and allow yourself to really go head first into something. And so that'd be my last tip, because even though I was really focused on the real estate thing, I was excited about it, I wasn't completely sold on it. So I went and built a consulting company to make plenty of money to pay the bills.
Yeah, right.
See how I did that? So I solved for that, and it wasn't the right thing, but it was the right thing for 6 months.
Right.
Then I pivoted, and now I've figured out exactly what that niche is for me.
As a side note, you mentioned Diana Kander. Is that Jason's wife?
It is.
It is, okay. All right, I thought so. I think I just saw...
And they have a little boy, cutest little boy, True. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I saw Jason, I think, tweet something about Diana or True or something recently. Okay.
So Diana goes around...
Because she has a... she's a consultant to startups?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. That's
and
what
large companies. Yeah.
Okay, all right, good. Okay, now... I'm going to segment here into our next segment here. I have my notes. So this is our lightning round here. So we call this the Mule Minute.
Okay.
So it's sponsored by Falcon Wealth Advisors, of course.
Fantastic.
And the idea here is I'm going to just rattle off some questions, around 9 or 10 questions for you.
Okay.
I've told guests that I'm going to give you 60 seconds to answer. Obviously, I don't have a stopwatch in here. But
I'll stay in there.
I'm just interested to hear the answer right off the top of your head.
I'm excited.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, we'll start it easy for you. What is your favorite destination?
That might be the hardest one for me.
Maybe not easy.
Wherever my wife and daughter is.
Good answer. Best way for you to unwind or relax?
Reading books.
You mentioned you're a Chiefs fan.
Yes.
What is the Chiefs' record going to be this year?
How many games are there?
They're 4-0 right now, and they play 16.
Okay, see, I'm the worst because my wife's always like, "You were in the NFL."
I was going to say you want to play for.
I'm not like.
I get it.
I don't do the fantasy
not
thing.
A big fan.
I'm not a big fan. Like, I love
yeah.
football, but I would say they're going to go 13-3.
Okay.
Yep.
If you could go back in time to any period in history, where would you go back to?
Wow.
Someone gave you a time machine.
Yeah, great question. I would say I'd go back before the internet.
How far back?
When was the internet invented? When did Al Gore invent the internet?
Early 90s, maybe? I don't know.
How about 1975?
Okay.
I would go to 1975.
Okay.
And see if I could still be as successful as we are now without the communication and the things that we've got.
Sure. That's good. I like that. For you, on retirement day one, what are you doing? Day one.
What? Day one retirement is probably getting up at not 4 a.m. anymore like I do right now, so probably 5 a.m. Getting my workout in, eating some great food, reading a book, and hopefully hanging out with my kids. And
Good.
I don't care where that's at. Yeah.
Good.
And my wife, obviously, hopefully.
Of course, right.
You better include that.
I'm
the type of guy that I don't think I'll ever stop intellectually being focused on.
That's good.
On doing transactions. I love the next deal. It might not be real estate. Maybe it's business.
Sure.
Maybe it's helping out with the community. Maybe it's with our foundation. It's something. It's something that I'll be doing. So
that's good. What is one thing that you know now that you wish you knew earlier?
I would say slow down to go fast, and be quick, but don't hurry. I think so many times earlier in my career, still, I'm quick to make a decision that I probably should have just slowed down and thought about it a little bit more, talked to a few more people, and then went and made that decision. So in early in my career, it absolutely was. I was hot-headed, and I could not control my emotions. So be quick, but don't hurry. And that's what my offensive line coach at UCM always used to tell me.
I like that. If you walked into an establishment and there was a karaoke machine and you had to sing one song, what song would you sing?
This is the easiest question because I'm a karaoke. If anybody watched me on Pine Street during my
Time in Warrensburg.
tenure in Warrensburg, I mean, it would be Jamie Johnson, In Color. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
And if that one they didn't have that, it would be Uncle Cracker, Drift Away.
Okay, nice. I like that. What is one profession that you'd love to try that's not your own?
Oh, man. Jeez. I've never thought about that because I've just done what I wanted to do.
But well, that's a good problem to have.
You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
I would say something with, so maybe being a golf pro. That would be kind of fun.
Really?
Yeah, and only because I think I would love to be outside working with people. I love watching, telling somebody, and that's direct feedback, right? You tell somebody a tip or something. I usually do that, but then I might not ever hear if they implement it. But with being a golf pro, you're outside on some of the most beautiful grounds ever. You're helping somebody that is trying to accomplish something, and you have direct feedback. Might be fun to try for a little while.
That's good. What is one piece of advice that you would give someone?
Okay.
You might have technically already answered this,
Yeah.
but I'm going to ask it again.
I would say never stop educating yourself. Even though we go to college and have a great education, the real education starts afterwards. And the people who continually decide to have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset are the ones that are going to be sitting in front of cameras getting interviewed, right?
Right. That's exactly right. I love that. That is great advice. Okay, good. Thank you for participating there.
Absolutely.
Maybe I think I maybe need to stop telling guests that that's supposed to happen in 60 seconds because it doesn't go in 60 seconds.
Yeah,
it never does.
yeah.
But some of those questions, I'm interested to hear what people had to say.
Sure.
All right, now the last question that I have for you is something that we talk about here internally amongst our team, and something that I've asked other guests also is, what is the first lesson or memory that you have that pertains to money or finances?
Okay, this is a funny story.
Okay.
So, like I said, I started working when I was 14, right? And you have to get a letter from school to say that you can work, and I saved enough money up by the time I was about 15 and a half that I decided I wanted a hot tub at our house.
Okay. All right.
And so my mom said, well, if you buy a hot tub,
you can have it.
You can put it in the backyard. And so this was my first negotiation that I ever had.
Okay, all right.
Okay. And I found it on Craigslist. I went and picked it up, all this stuff. But when I showed up, I had a number that I wanted, right? And it was $900.
So you hadn't agreed to a number yet?
Not yet.
Okay.
But we had talked about a range, And I was like, all right, I'm gonna go in there. And they were asking like $1,200 for it.
Sure.
I was like, I'm gonna go in there and I'm gonna say $900 and I'm gonna stick to my guns and I'm gonna get this thing and we're gonna leave with it. Well, when we started negotiating, I said, well, what do you want for it? And he said his price, and right after he said his price, it slipped right out of my mouth. I said, I'll give you $1,100. And he goes, done. And I was like,
that wasn't my plan. I thought you had a plan.
So I was prepared to pay for the whole thing.
Sure.
$1,200, but I offered him $1,100 when I should have just said $9.
You knew $9 was your number.
That's literally the first, and my mom will still not let me live that down.
It's pretty funny.
Yeah. So I ended up paying $300 or $200 more than I really wanted to for my hot tub. But,
so what was the lesson?
The lesson was to be prepared and make a plan beforehand and stick to it.
That's good.
Yep, that's what it was. Think
I like
through
that.
it, because I had talked about the 900 thing, but I never sat down and thought, Logan, what are you gonna actually say? Mm-hmm. And now I've done it enough where it's second nature.
Sure.
But I was so young. I was 15. Negotiating with a 65-year-old.
You got excited, yeah.
I got excited. I wanted a hot tub. Can you imagine how cool it was, right? So the lesson is be prepared, make a plan, and stick to it.
That's good. I like that. I feel with a supreme amount of confidence that I'm never going to get another answer to that question that pertains to somebody wanting to buy a hot tub. But anyway, I love that that's what you wanted to buy at 15. That was your priority.
Who knows why?
But you got it though.
I got it.
Brought it back, got it in. It worked.
I dug the trench to put the wiring onto the house, everything.
Was it worth it?
Yeah, it was awesome.
Good.
That's my buddies. Yeah, they all loved it.
I bet. All right, good. Well, again, I think that's about all the time that we have for today. So, again, Logan, I really appreciate your time. I appreciate you coming on here.
Appreciate you, Cory.
And I'm happy to hear. I'm happy to call you a fellow alum, and I'm happy to hear about all the success that you're having. As a reminder to all of our guests and our audience and our viewers and listeners, if you want to make sure that you subscribe to the show so you don't miss any new episodes as they come out. Again, on YouTube, you can type in Central Missouri Alumni Stories. The same goes for wherever you catch your podcast, whether that's Spotify or Apple or Google or wherever it might be. So you want to make sure that you subscribe so you don't miss new episodes as they come out. If you have any ideas or feedback or criticism, whatever it might be, I can take it. I do appreciate if anybody wants to get in touch with me or if they have any suggested guests for future episodes, you can email me. My email is just Cory@FalconWealthAdvisors.com. Or you can find me. I'm on most social media platforms, but Twitter is probably the one that I use most frequently. And my handle on there is at Cory Bittner KC.
Still Twitter.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, for me personally. And I think it's partially work, partially news, and partially leisure. Cool. So perfect. Well, thank you guys again. Thank you, Logan, for your time.
Thanks for having me.
And we hope that you have a great day.